Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV back with another Market Watch episode. I know it's been a couple of weeks since our last Market Watch. Tom did upload a couple of times in the aftermath of the YCS last week, and there were some things that needed to be handled with our website, MSTmerch.com, now being up and running. But of course we are back, and I'm going to take today to cover a couple of extra cards from the last little while. Some of it's to do with tournament results, some with the release of King's Court, and others with new decks and support over in the OCG. A ton of different things that we have to look at today, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so to kick things off, let's take a look at a price spike that is fairly recent. We have In for Noble Knight Renault. So this is a card that is a pretty important piece of the In for Noble Knight deck, which was a top tier choice up until December of 2020, when Smoke Grenade of the Thief and Link Ross were banned, and the deck lost two really important combo pieces. Renault was a 3 of in the deck because it's basically just a free extender out of your hand that can turn itself into a tuner, while also grabbing you back a Fire Warrior or an equip spell from your graveyard or banished zone back to your hand. Of course, after that ban list, In for Nobles didn't really do anything in terms of competitive play. People tried to make it work, but the deck just kind of fell short of other meta options, and as a result, Renault went from being a $20 card all the way down to being $8 to $10 a piece. Now, however, at the LCS this past weekend, In for Noble Knights actually took second place at the event, which is causing people to look back and reconsider to see if the deck is actually viable once again. This sudden panic buying of Renault has caused the price to jump up to $18 a piece, almost back to the price that it was at before the deck was hit. Of course, the card does have just one ultra rare printing from Toon Chaos, which came out just about a year ago. Personally, I'm still not that big on the deck since I think it runs too many bricks to perform at a top tier level consistently, but who knows, maybe the meta is different enough now that the deck could be solid. At any rate, I think that with the set having come out about a year ago, we're going to start seeing some of the Toon Chaos cards reprinted, especially some of those that were more in demand, such as Renault and Chaos Space. Perhaps moving these cards doesn't need to be at the very top of your priority list right now, but definitely consider moving at least your extra copies while the prices are hyped up. Next up, we have a card that we did talk about, I believe, like a month or so ago, and it is Access Code Talker. I think we all know what this card is by now. It's an easily accessible extra deck boss monster that can pop cards and not allow your opponent to respond to it while also getting pretty big itself. I think that when we last looked at this card, it was at around $120 or so. Now we are actually seeing the card even higher at $150 a piece. This is honestly really crazy to me, especially because we are all expecting this card to be reprinted in the 2021 Megatons, which is naturally going to bring the price down quite a lot. However, I guess there are just a lot of people that want to use this card for their remote duels or LCS events and whatnot, and this is probably one of the most common extra deck monsters that we see running around right now. I guess this shouldn't come as a huge surprise. I do remember last year we saw Borreload's Savage Dragon actually shoot up in price several times in the months leading up to its reprint because that was such a staple extra deck monster at the time. Anyways guys, if you do plan to play events and you need access code, then of course keep your one copy for yourself to use, but if you do have extras, I would highly recommend offloading them at this hyped up price since it will almost definitely tank when the reprint is officially confirmed. Okay, so one other meta card that we have to take a look at here, this is Virtual World Lulu. This is like the pricey card for the Virtual World deck, since the deck is pretty affordable for the most part, aside from really only Shen Shen being a secret rare, but that's still pretty cheap. Back when True King of All Calamities was in the game and Virtual World was arguably the best deck of the format, Lulus were up at $25 to $30 a piece. However, now the deck kind of has fallen off without having access to True King, and the card fell down to around $10 or so. Now the deck does seem to be picking up a little bit more steam with people interested in the deck once again. It took a top 16 spot at the LCS from this weekend kind of unexpectedly, and I believe it did fairly well at the Remote Duel YCS as well. Anyways, much like Renault, this card is back up to the $20 mark once again, though personally I do think that Virtual World is much more viable as a deck than the In for Noble Knights are. However, unlike with Renault, it is almost a guarantee that we are going to see Lulu reprinted in the 2021 Megatons because it does come from a core set. Hopefully we'll see it as a secret rare, maybe as a super rare would be cool too, so that it could at least match the rest of the Virtual World cards. Now to be fair, the card could trend upwards over the next month or two a few dollars because it is the most expensive card for the Virtual World deck, and maybe the deck will see another spike in popularity, but personally I wouldn't want to take that bet, and I think it's safer to just offload them now because 99% of the time we see cards fall in price after they get their Megaton reprints. Alright, this is kind of an interesting one that I found out about today. It is Nightbeam. Now, I remember when this card first came out, it saw kind of like a small amount of play here and there, but it's just not a quick play, and that's a big reason for a lot of people not to play it over something like MST or Cosmic Cyclone, something like that. This card lets you target a set spell or trap card, and then your opponent can't activate the targeted card in response to this card's activation, and then you pop the card. This isn't perfect since your opponent could chain something else and then chain the targeted card, right? But in the right situation, this card could be really annoying and get rid of problem cards. The idea here is that you use Nightbeam in the Tri-Brigade matchup to target Revolt so that they can't chain it, which theoretically does set them back quite a bit. However, I'm not entirely sure that this card is worth a side deck slot at the moment when you could just put in something that's a little bit more generic but useful in multiple different matchups instead. Anyways, it is just the ultimate rares that are expensive now, as the unlimiteds are $10, but the first edition copies are way up there at $30 a piece. Of course, this card does have multiple lower rarity printings available, so if you just want a copy of the card, you can probably still grab them for only a quarter or something like that. Because of this card's limited applications, I don't think that this buyout is going to stick, and it should fall back down in price fairly quickly, so if you can offload your alties at this hyped up price and be content with testing with commons or something like that for now, that is definitely the way that I would go. Next up, Sky Cavalry Centauria is another card that has come up in the past few months on Market Watch, but actually just saw another wave of buyouts recently. Centauria is a rank 2 monster that cannot be destroyed by battle, and if it does battle, you get to detach a material from it to return the opponent's monster that battled with it to your opponent's hand. Now, this is of course an out to Dragoon, since its effect is non-targeting. I believe that when we looked at it before, the card was primarily being bought out because the Evil Twin deck had just come out, and of course it is a useful option in the extra deck for those playing frogs or paleozoics. Now, however, I believe that the general idea is that you make this card with 2 level 2 monsters that you summon off of Rescue Cat, so Kit and Karis. It is worth noting that if you detach Kit from Centauria, you do get its effect to search as well, and then of course from there you can go into Downward Magician and then Zeus. Now, whereas last time we saw Centauria bought out to the $15 to $20 mark, we are now seeing Centauria up at $30 to $35 each for either of the ultra rare printings of the card, one being from the original Secrets of Eternity set and the other being from the Megatins of that year. Of course, either of these printings is quite old, and this card hasn't really seen any meta play over the years, so it's quite difficult to find copies of this card available. Realistically, because this card hasn't been printed since 2015, we will see it in either Brothers of Legend or Maximum Gold Eldorado, or at the very least in an OTS tournament pack set by the end of this year. So out of King's Court, there are a couple of interesting cards I want to take a look at, and the first one is definitely Lightning Storm. I think that Lightning Storm is one of the most highly anticipated reprints that we've been expecting all year, so I think it's really great that we're seeing it be reprinted a little bit earlier than the 2021 Megatins. Obviously, it's a really simple card, either blowing up all of your opponent's attack position monsters or all of their back row as long as you control no face-up cards. This card has been an amazing answer to back row decks that basically make sure that you don't lose to something like someone setting 5 floodgates and then passing turn. I feel like this card is a side deck card that a lot of people run at 3 just in case they run into one of those matchups, right? But unfortunately, when it only had the 1 secret rare printing, the card was really expensive, up at over the $100 mark for most of its lifetime. Now, of course, with an ultra rare reprint coming in King's Court, the card is much more affordable. The secret rares have cooled off. Unlimiteds are down to $70, though the first editions are still quite high at $95 to $100 each, which is to be expected because they are the original secret rare first editions. However, the ultras are extremely affordable now at $40 each. Despite being much cheaper now, I would definitely recommend holding off on picking up this card for now if you don't need it. We actually saw Pot of Extravagance have a very similar thing happen to it last year, where it was included as an additional reprint in a side set, Toon Chaos, before being included in the Megatins, and of course that additional Megatin reprint would make the card even more affordable than it already is. Of course, there is a chance that the card could be excluded, but I personally think that Lightning Storm is such an important card that they will want to include it in the 2021 Megatins as a chase card. If you've been waiting for long enough, I think it's perfectly reasonable to go out and get yourself a set of Ultra Lightning Storms for around $100 or so, especially if you plan to use this card as events open up over the rest of the summer. However, if you're not planning on using them anytime soon, I do think it's reasonable to wait and see what the 2021 Megatins will bring before you buy into this card. The other card out of King's Court that was interesting to me is number F0 Utopic Draco Future, so without a doubt this is the most hyped up of all the new cards to come out of King's Court. It provides monster effect negation where you can also take control of the monster that you're negating. To make it, you probably are wanting to use it on top of number F0 Utopic Future, which you can make with 2 Xyz monsters that have the same rank that are not number monsters. Now I think that the problem with this card is that there aren't really any meta decks right now that are going to be making it. I think you can bring it out in Zodiac using Chakanine to revive something, or maybe in some Burning Abyss Phantom Knight variant. But there's nothing really that's seeing a ton of play right now, and because of that I actually think that Utopic Draco Future is kind of cheap right now, where the ultras are down at around 20 and the collector's rares are up at 110. Now, if there were a meta deck that existed right now that used Utopic Draco Future, I think that we would be seeing the collector's rares up at 200 and the ultras up at $35 to $40. So I do believe that if you can get an ultra at least for anywhere from $15 in cash to $20 in trade, it is a worthwhile pickup. The card has a lot of upwards potential and it is brand new, so it's probably not going to be reprinted for quite some time. I'm not saying that you should go out and invest in a ton of copies of this card, because obviously there's no guarantee that the decks that are coming out this year will actually be able to take advantage of it, but I think that it's a reasonable card to hold on to a few copies of if you can snag them at the right price. Alright, one final card that we should take a look at here today is Eradicator Epidemic Virus. Now in Burst of Destiny we are getting a brand new generic monster called King of the Sky Prison. This card has a couple of different effects. During your main phase you can reveal it in your hand to prevent set cards on the field from being destroyed by card effects, so that's protection from things like Twin Twisters or MST. Also, if a set spell or trap card is activated, you can summon this card out of your hand directly, and if it was revealed when you do summon it, you get to set any spell or trap card directly from your deck, but it's banished during the next end phase. So this is basically like a generic spell or trap searcher. It's a bit more situational, but I think it's still really cool. Obviously, if it's trap, you can't activate it until the following turn. Also worth noting though, is that this card is a level 10 dark monster with 3000 attack points. And I think that this card is particularly cool because you can use it to set Eradicator Epidemic Virus from your deck and then tribute it as the cost for Eradicator and get rid of all of your opponent's spell or trap cards depending on the matchup. Because of this, it's the secret rare versions of Eradicator Epidemic Virus that have gone up in price, that being the original highest rarity version of the card. We have Unlimiteds up at $75 already, and the original secret rare first editions up at $150, which is honestly pretty crazy. If you just want to play this card, there are a couple of holo printings and then several commons as well. I think even the holos are only $1 or $2 right now, so still pretty cheap, pretty affordable. It's the secret rares that are actually just kind of crazy at the moment. I don't know how much play this combo is actually going to see when it does arrive here in the TCG. It's a really cool idea in theory, but you do have to hard draw the King of the Sky Prison for now, and it does take a bit of setting up to pull off. For now, I would just keep an eye on tournament results over in the OCG to see if it does manage to see play over there, and use that to gauge just how excited we should be for this card's eventual release in the TCG. Okay guys, that is it for today's episode. There are a few more things to talk about next time. We finally have all of Burst of Destiny spoiled for us over in the OCG, and I think we're starting to see some results from that set as well, so that'll be interesting. I think that we're finally about to hit a really good next 6 months or so of Yu-Gi-Oh product between all of the different reprint sets and a couple of really good looking core sets coming up. A really big improvement over what we've been seeing for the last little while. Anyways, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please make sure that you guys hit that thumbs up button for me and let me know. Also, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards we talked about today, or also let me know about what other cards are trending on the market so I can cover it in a future Market Watch episode as well. Also, if you haven't already, make sure that you hit the subscribe button for all of the latest and greatest content from both Tombox and myself here on the channel. Also, make sure you check out our brand new website, MSTmerch.com, for some really cool sleeves and dividers and a mat that Tombox has up there as well, and some other stuff that we're going to be putting out within the next couple of months or so, so keep an eye on that. And yeah guys, I think that's it. So until next time, make sure you hold on to your MST.TV.